right, and welcome to this either video or a podcast, whichever form you happen to listen to it in. For this particular one, I wanted to go through and discuss thoughts on leaving a game. Now, the impetus for doing this, at least for myself personally, I actually just sold my Star Wars Legion stuff. Now, what I will preface this by saying it has nothing to do with the rules changes. Actually, I think the rules changes are great. I'm a big fan of pretty much all of them. I really think they're quite good. I know there's been some complaints about certain ones, especially like cover and things like that. But as someone who plays a variety of other systems, nothing they've done in there or that AMG does in there like bothered me. I'm used to it through other games or styles, but I understand if that's like your primary game, that some of these changes might be pretty big. But I sold it because honestly I hadn't played it in forever. Um, I put it upstairs. So my upstairs, I have essentially a gaming space. There's not enough space for a table, but it has all my stuff in it, all my collection of board games, all that kind of stuff. And we have some countertops in there, essentially, some cabinets with countertops. And I set them out and I took pictures of them. I was like, I haven't played some. Maybe I'll try selling them. And that was like back in March. Just sold them recently. I reposted it, and like the day I reposted it, they sold. Because I was thinking back to it, and I said, well, I painted them back in like 2019. And I added some stuff to the army since then, of course. But I don't think I've gotten it legitimately to the table in well over 2 years. And it didn't bother me that I hadn't. I had no concern about the fact that I hadn't actually played it in quite a while. I think within the last 2 years, I might have done like a small skirmish type force of like the 500 points or whatever it was. That was probably about it. And even then, it was fine. It was enjoyable. I have nothing against the game. But it just, I didn't want to, kind of thing. And I said, you know what? Well, if it's been sitting around this long, am I realistically going to play it again? Probably no. Let me sell it. So I did. So through that, as well as, seeing like some other people who sell things because of, change of life, and we'll talk about all of that as well. I thought I would make a video or a podcast, depending which way you listen to this or view it, related to that idea. When is the right time to effectively give up on a game? And I don't want it to sound like giving up because there's some inherent problem with you or inherent problem with the game. There very well could be. Could be one, both, or neither. But when is, enough? All right, so for this discussion, I kind of made myself some outline notes, and I'm going to talk from at least my perspective of the ways I think about this. There might be a lot of other reasons, and we might come across some as I talk, as this discussion occurs, but we'll see. So the first one I put it as when it stops being fun. Okay, so why does a game stop being fun? One, it could stop being fun because it loses its luster. There are some games out there that are much more flash in the pan, and not necessarily flash in the pan as in the game collapses and goes away. That's another reason to potentially stop the game, because it no longer exists anymore. I don't play Star Wars Destiny because that thing stopped existing. I was going to say, actually, I don't play Netrunner. I do still play some Netrunner because it exists in a different way now. I play fantasy again because it exists again now. I'm not a person who enjoys playing dead games. A few reasons why. One, getting or keeping or growing a community is very, very tough unless you already have one. In my local group, that there's so many good games that are out. There's not really a point for us to play games that no longer exist, other than as one-offs or, hey, random, why don't we try this out that day? But to actually grow it and do that doesn't really work. Stores don't necessarily like it because what do they have to sell? And if a store is not selling you product, they're not staying in business. So that's just me, But so when we talk about that loss of luster, it could also just mean the fact that, flash in the pan doesn't have to mean that it's gone, but the enjoyment you had out of it was. Pause there for a moment to try to think of an example for myself. An example I would think of for myself, at least, was Team Yankee. Overall, it's a perfectly fine game. It's a perfectly fine system. I understand why for some people out there absolutely love it. I'm not big on historicals personally, so that might have something to do with it. But several of us started and we played a bit, and it was enjoyable for a bit, and then something about it just wasn't fun. And I think it was, maybe for me at least, the game/game design wasn't what I actually enjoyed. It was working on and painting and building up and playing a new game with my friends. At least in my local area, maybe where you guys are different, but my local area, when a new thing comes out, a bunch of us jump onto it, and they usually don't stick. It depends on what. Certain things stick. Some stuff has. But that was a game that a bunch of us tried out and just, it entirely went away, at least for all of us. And it could just be, like I said, because something about its idea was more fun than it itself. Another reason why sometimes it just stops being fun is a new edition woes or changes. I do know there's people who are getting rid of or not playing their Legion anymore because of the changes. I don't think they're so drastic to warrant that, but it's possible, of course. We always know that every time, say, 40k changes to a new edition, you lose some people and you gain some new ones. Even though in that game, it's been several editions since it's truly changed. I know, obviously, when they got rid of Fantasy and went over to Sigmar, if you want to call that a new edition, at the beginning it technically was. Lots of people left that because they completely obliterated what the game used to be, for better or worse. In the beginning, it was for worse. Now I think it's for the better, and they brought Fantasy back, so now you got that if you like that as well. When I think of Dystopian Wars, so if I think to other game systems, War Cradle Studios, I had to go check who does that, and I couldn't remember. I used to be Spider-Man, now it's War Cradle Studios. When they did their edition, so there was a previous edition, they did their own edition. And I don't hear anyone talk about that. I know like one person who cares about Dystopian, and a bunch of us used to. And I know in all the different communities, a lot of people did not like the changes. I wasn't really a big fan of the changes. It did feel like overall, to a reasonably large extent, that they completely changed what the game was. I know for Firestorm Armada, which who knows if that'll ever see the light of day, that was supposed to get its full official release like 3 years ago at time of recording. Those changes, it didn't feel like the same game. At least when you think of a game, there's often 1 to 2 things that make it that game. Now, those things can be lore and faction and fluff and all of that. There's usually also mechanically certain things that really highlight it. There's games that have lore that I could care less about. And there's games where the interesting part to them is the lore. For me, 40k, the interesting part is the lore. It's the story. It's all of that. It's not necessarily the game so much. Keep into, say, GW properties for a second. Sigmar, I don't care about the lore whatsoever, but I find the gameplay a lot of fun. I find the same thing is true for a few others. Say BattleTech. I don't know BattleTech lore. We did that video with Dan. He taught me some BattleTech lore, but I don't care about BattleTech lore at all. I just enjoy the game. So what you found, at least with, say, Firestorm, when they did that, is that Firestorm lost, the mechanics, exploding sixes in the way that they did, the damage aggregation the way that it did. It lost some of those mechanics. They altered. And then it doesn't feel like the same sort of game. And we already knew they were redoing a bit of the lore anyway. So then none of that matches up. With Dystopian, remember, this is the company that also owns Wild West Exodus. So Dystopian and Wild West, they wanted it to effectively work together. So they completely altered the lore for it and then altered gameplay as well. Effectively, it's a different game. It's a brand new game. I know, talking about from other things, TT Combat just recently announced that Dropship, I forget if it's Dropship or Drop Zone, one of them. No, should be Dropship, because that would be 2nd edition. That Dropship, they're like, yeah, you can buy some of our stuff on the store for much cheaper or at a discount, and when the new edition comes out, you'll see what's valid still. Does that mean rules then? Because those obviously aren't. You mean my models might go away? Like those sort of things. So there is times when that new edition, there's always these sort of concerns that a new edition is going to alter things so much that the game's garbage, you don't want it anymore. I mean, it's a phrase for a reason. Wargamers hate 2 things staying the same and change. However, a new edition of 40k, if you liked 40k before, you'll probably enjoy the new edition. Sigmar, yeah, you probably will. Conquest, those updates. If you liked Conquest currently, you're going to like all the updates that they do. There might be little bits and pieces you don't necessarily agree with, but you'll get over it, kind of thing. Some games, though, greatly, greatly change between editions or styles and all. When X-Wing went from 1.0 to 2.0, that was a pretty drastic. When it went to AMG, even more drastic, some of the changes they did. So it makes sense when some of those times when people decide to get out. The other one I put down for why it could stop being fun is just a redesign or loss of your faction or models. When we look at some games, so I just mentioned the drop fleet. We don't know what that means. Are they actually going to get rid of certain models? Maybe. When you look at Sigmar, they got rid of a large part of the Stormcast Eternals, one of their chambers, I forget which one, but they got rid of a bunch of those models. I know at least one of the players in our area was like, yeah, that happened just to be the models he had. Oh, my faction's essentially legacied now. Now what? When they transferred and started Sigmar, if you play Tomb Kings, like I have now, or Bretonnian, they weren't there. They were there in the very first part and then immediately removed. So you're just kind of gone. I know there's been, when with War Machine, with its build up, there's been some spots of that because in the beginning they weren't necessarily supporting everything. I think their goal is to get to everything, but not everything was there in the beginning, or at least not in terms of when you look it up and all factions were coming online and all. So you might just not have fun because maybe they redesigned what you did, or you just don't even exist in the game anymore. If, like I said, if you had those old Sigmar models, okay, now all my stuff is counts as. If you have a lot of Firstborn Marines when it comes to, say, Warhammer 40K, a lot of Firstborn stuff's just been going away over time. It's all going Primaris. Me personally, I have a big 30K armies. Originally, I was like, all right, I'm going to build up a Dark Angels army for 40K. It'll be great. I'm going to play a bunch of my my 30K in it as well. I'm going to play them as like, these were the guys who just never changed after the heresy. They essentially pretend like none of that ever happened. Any of the stuff with Luther or any of that. And they just go out crusading, and hey, Contemptors are essentially gone. So are Land Raider Spartans and all of it. So there was no option for that. I kind of lost all desire in doing that project, because then that project becomes, I have to just get pure 40K stuff, which I liked the idea of my 40K matching the 30K. I have, not right around me, but I have painted up starter set from 10th in the old, black and silvers of Dark Angels, because that was the style that I wanted, because that's what seemed fun to me. So you might stop having fun just because it's just not the same, or it doesn't even exist anymore. So it stopped being fun. Reasons you might stop having fun. So a game could stop being fun because it's been so crazily redesigned, or your stuff is gone, or the new edition has wrecked all of your things, or it just ended up, it wasn't really a good game for you anyway. It might stop having fun because the crowd or the lack thereof. So I'm lucky that where I live in New Jersey, there is, I would say, about 5 or so game stores that I go to. There's some that I go to a lot more regular than others. I go to Maplewood Hobby the most. I do make trips up to Rogue State Gaming, up further north. Red Seal Gaming, they're both labeled RSG, so I have to be careful when I look up in different servers where I am for that. And Wargamers Guild, which is a little bit further south for me. But those are probably the primary stores I go to, and I go to all of them at different varying amounts. But I have a lot of different stores I can go to. That's a lot of different communities, and some games are just bigger or better in other communities. Like, it might be different now because of what happened with X-Wing, but we didn't really have an X-Wing showing. But if I wanted to do that, hey, that's what Red Seal does. Depending on what I'm looking for, there's different stores that might have more of a community for it, or more of a focus or anything like that. We don't do a lot of historicals where we are. I know at least a few times I've been down. It's been a little bit since I've went down to Wargamers Guild, but there's different guys doing historicals, or if I'm on their servers, a bunch of guys are talking about historicals. So like, hey, if that's what I kind of want, that's a good spot to kind of go for it. But like I said, I'm kind of lucky that I have these sort of crowds. You could stop having fun with the game because of either the crowd around the game. For me personally, that was always War Machine. I haven't played War Machine in years upon years upon years, but I was never a big fan of a lot of the community, and it wasn't even the community from exactly necessarily the store that I spend the most time at. Just stores local, or just community of it in general. That's sort of a play like you got a pair idea. I'm not a super crazed tournament player. It doesn't mean I want to play bad things, but I want to play because it's fun. And if our goal is to stomp each other in every way we can, that's not fun. So it could be the actual people, or it could be that you just don't have much of a crowd. There is, like I said, when I sold out my Legion, part of it is there's some places around me, but the closest stores, the ones I go, excuse me, the ones I go to the most, they don't play it. Not really. There might be a person or two, but like it's not in the general rotation. And other spots, maybe they have a few, but it's much tougher. It's the same reason why I sold out a Star Wars Armada years ago. It was honestly like the most fun game. Even at the time, I like Conquest more now, but before then, that was the game I always had the most fun with. But I could never find a game. I know there's a few spots now here and there that some people play, but I got rid of it because I just couldn't find it. So there was no people, or sometimes, like I said, there can be toxic communities. You see it, you see it with war gamers, but I think we're better at self-regulating because if someone is terrible, war gamers will usually tell them, someone will tell them, or no one will ever play with them again. And the person's either going to figure it out, apologize, and become better. We all know examples of things where that happened, or you'll just never see them again. I find at least more of a problem with card gamers. Card gamers, for whatever reason, feel more required to just play no matter what. Where Wargamer, maybe because it's the length of most card games, for Wargamer, if I'm going to spend the next 2 to 3 hours playing a game, if I know I don't enjoy playing games with you, or maybe certain games, whatever that may be, I'm just going to tell you no. So you could stop having fun because of the people around it. You could stop having fun just because of game design. Now, this could also relate to, like I said, new edition or just updates, changes, or it could just be, like I said, there's something about it that doesn't click with you anymore or no longer clicks, or company direction, we could even say. So, like I said, when you think of War Machine, as time went on, they went to drive more and more competitive. I think they're trying to go a little bit more casual with it now. By that point, that was what their emphasis was. If that's not what you enjoy, you probably aren't necessarily having nearly as much fun with it. When we look at 40K is always a really good example. We look at changes in 40K when they started giving out eventually free models and things. Oh, you have this sort of formation. Oh, you're Space Marines. Well, your formation means you get as many rhinos as you want for free. That's a game design thing. That's not even necessarily an addition change. That's new and updated alterations that just kind of destroyed at least my enjoyment of it, maybe some others. The other thing could be your growth as a person or just as a community. Our community, effectively, some of the games we just moved on from. There's other ones we used to play in the past. I did play some Drop Fleet, some Drop Zone, all of those. Our community, we just don't do that. We play a bunch of other games. We don't really play a lot of historicals that we used to in the past. That's kind of moved on. And me, myself, as time has gone on, some of those games just don't interest me anymore. The types of games that they are and what they are isn't fun anymore. The type of war gamer that I am is very different now than what it used to be. I used to play a lot of orcs and things like that. That was probably the 40K army that I had the most stuff for. Now, honestly, I have no interest in orcs. They just don't really suit me. Apparently, I've been playing just a lot more undead or undead-like, because I play Necrons, I play Tomb Kings, play Osiris Bone Reapers, so that's just me as a person. Those sort of styles that usually tend to be more methodical, regenerative, slow, implacable. Those are sort of the descriptors when I hear for armies that I enjoy. Same thing with Old Dominion. So who you are can change, or what your community does. We are always, of course, beholden to the people we play with. If you have a play group, say you got 10 people that you play certain games with, if no one's playing a certain game and they have no interest in it, you're not going to play the game. On the other side of like maybe picking up games, like we now have a play group that does some Song of Ice and Fire. So I've been picking up some stuff for that. Been playing that again. I sold out of that a while ago because I just wasn't playing. I only played online, played tons online, like World Champs and stuff like that. But I stopped playing otherwise. Well, hey, now we got a couple people playing. We got some group that comes by on Mondays. You know what? Yeah, let me pick up some stuff. Let me play this game. So you could stop because it wasn't fun. You weren't having fun. Could be no time. Of course, that one's simple. You sell out of a game because you just have no more time for it. That's really what I did for Legion. At the end of the day, the game is still enjoyable. I can find some games if I really wanted to. It's not entirely gone, but I have too many other games, too many other things, too many other responsibilities. I'm just not playing it. And when I think of like, oh, this week I have time to play one game, that's never the game on the list. It's never the top priority. So the other reason to give up on a game is there's a lot of other newer stuff out. Some games have old game design. You see this especially when you talk about board games. If you talk about like old hex and cardboard, there is new generations hex and cardboards that are just better than the old ones. If you look at board games, there is they've started doing more updates related to the Castles of Burgundy and stuff like that because oh well, here's a classic, it works really well. They don't necessarily update the rules for something. Sometimes they do, but not really so much. But it's sort of a classic. But they don't do it with all the games because not all of them make it. Not all of them have the robustness of what they do to survive in the long-term environment. Especially when you talk about board games, you have a wide variety of these sorts of games that that flash in the pan, like get real popular for a bit, and then you don't hear anyone talk about it because it was a cool game, had a lot of hype, but something's lacking, or other things are better, or they don't quite do enough. So you see that a lot there. You do see it with miniature games as well. I play a lot less Marvel Crisis Protocol because I play a lot more Shatterpoint. Doesn't mean the other game's not good, and I'll play it anytime. You know, if someone suggests playing it, I got it. I'll sit down and play it. But I do play the other one more. I just do. It maybe plays, I don't know if I would say it plays better or not. I think they're very different. No matter how close you think they are, I think they're actually quite different. But it is a newer thing. Same thing's going to happen, I'm sure, when some other games come out. There is war games that we know are coming out. We know that there's the skirmish version of A Song of Ice and Fire. I think it's Tactics, I think they call it. I forget the exact thing. But we know that that's coming out. Maybe that becomes the jam for some people, and therefore they give up on some other games, or they just decide they can't do it. Our playgroup used to play Titanicus a bunch. We just don't. There's a lot of other games that came out. You know, Imperialis for a little bit was a big thing because it kind of gave us what Titanicus was missing, which was everything. A very different game, of course, but you. What's a good way to put this? When I say new, I don't necessarily mean a brand new game. It could be new to you, new to your playgroup, new to wherever you are. But you only have so much bandwidth. You only have so much time. You only have the ability to play so many games. So it might just become the fact that you swap to a new game because that is what the people you're playing with are doing. That is what is popular in your area. Maybe it's because you need a new project. Like at this point, I don't want to paint another 40k army. I have my Necrons. I'm going to keep them because like 40k is ubiquitous and like I run tournaments for it and everything like that. So I don't want to remove any of that. But at the same fashion, I don't have any interest in painting another 40k army, but I am still painting stuff. There is other things I want to be painting. Right now, I'm going to be working on my Osieric Bone Reapers. That's a project I'm excited about. But when that's done, I don't know if I'm going to paint. I don't know if I would paint another faction. When it comes to Conquest, no, I'm painting a bunch of different factions. I'm working on all kinds of stuff there. So like some of these other ones, you know, Conquest is a game I've been playing now for a couple of years. Some other games are falling by the wayside just because that's the game I want to play. That's the one I'm working on so much. I have, I don't know, 200 models to paint and stuff like that. I've boxes in the card to work on that I got at auctions and all of that kind of stuff. It's week of Adepticon, so we're getting a mini Raj because I absolutely want a mini Raj. And paint that little doughboy up. Love it. But you might just change because of what's happened. So, oh, and I'd be remiss if I don't say it. If you do like Conquest, and especially right now while it's Gen Con, if you're trying to pick anything up, our discount code Train Kickers works on all of that. So if you want a little mini Raj for yourself or some of those posters, if that's kind of your jam, you can save 10%. Helps us out as well. So, the other thing I wanted to discuss here, at least for a few minutes, is the idea of selling or not selling. So I sold my Legion army. Over time, how many armies have I sold? Sold my Legion. I sold Ogres in the past for fantasy. I sold Demons I had. Those were mostly fantasy. I sold my Cruel Boys army. Orcs for 40k, Blood Angels, my stuff for most of Spartan Game stuff because they went under, so I just got rid of it, and probably a few other things. I still have a good amount of stuff up there. To me, when you're thinking of selling, there's a few facets I try to think of. One is obviously the money. Do I need it or want it? Do I want to put it into a new project? Like I said, I sold the Legion because I thought about it. I said, am I really going to play it? No, I'm really not. And I also don't want to put more money into it. It's not even necessarily the money you'll get out of it. If your project is not entirely complete in every way imaginable, then that means to keep up with it, you'd have to put money into it. So Legion has had like Genosians come out, and I know there's like some crab droids that are either out or coming out. There's some other stuff for CIS that's coming out. Well, I'm not playing it. And if I did want to play it or do something with it, there's new stuff that's different that I'd probably want to get anyway. So I would be throwing money into a project that I no longer do anything with. So it's not always even the money that you want to get out of it, but it's the money that you want to put into it, if anything. I'm going to be trying to get rid of some of the X-Wing I have. I haven't played it. I know they got rid of the game. I know I'm just not going to play. And it's the kind of at the point where I'd either have to spend a lot of money to pick up enough stuff to kind of increase what I have for that, or just sell it out entirely and get every what I can from it. So obviously money is a concern, but there's two different sides. Space. Upstairs now I have extra space, but I do have a lot of conquest projects I'm working on. So I might be getting rid of some other stuff. I haven't thought about it yet. I'm not entirely sure, but I might get rid of some other stuff just because it's the space. At some point we're trying to downgrade our house. We actually want to get into something a little bit smaller. The home is honestly just a bit too much for us. So I know that if I have less space, that's a concern as well. Does it all fit in my Dettol cases and all? So, it's always a concern. Investment. The investment's monetary, but let's face it, one of the bigger investments that you have is your time and all of that. You invested time potentially to paint them. You invested time in assembly. You invested time in working with them, playing with them, stuff like that. I said, there's certain projects I thought about, like my Titanicus. I haven't touched in a while. I know we used to do a bunch of it. I don't play it. I would. I got nothing against it, but in reality, I'm probably not going to. Would I get rid of it? I don't know. I spent a lot of time on those models. There's a lot of personal investment on those. My Warlords were about 12 to 13 hours each. The Reavers were probably 8 to 9 hours each and all of that. So I spent a lot of time. I like the look of it. I like it as a sort of an accomplishment for the painting that I did. So would I ever get rid of it because of that? I don't know. For enough money, maybe, but then again, money is just money. And I don't mean to say that because I'm sitting on some high hill. I'm not in any way. But, is it worth what I would get out for the investment I put in? On certain things, maybe not. For the Legion, yes. The investment that I got out was worth the investment I put in. So the money I got out was worth the effort I put into. For the Titanicus, currently, probably no. I mean, if you're in a tough spot and you need to, I understand that. I always feel bad if someone has to do it for that. It's always better if we can do things because we want to, not because we have to. But I don't think the trade-off would be better. I'd rather just, avoid picking up stuff for hobbies for a while rather than like get rid of that and turn that to the hobby money. And that's what I'm going to do with the Legion stuff. The idea is, okay, well, that's my hobby money then. But for that, I'll just go without for a while kind of thing, if I'm in such a position to be able to do so. So again, I hope that doesn't come across as one way or the other. I mean, whatever you are personally in your life is your personal position. Hobbies we know are not cheap. There is cheaper ways to do hobbies, but hobbies in general are not cheap. So hopefully whatever you're doing it in a well thought out and responsible way. And you are making sure to still achieve whatever life goals and decisions that you need with whatever you have going on. So the other part of selling or not is likeliness of returning. What do you think the odds are you're actually going to go back to the game? I know I've said this before on different things, but what I found was funny. When I sold my Armada, I want to say it was about a week later at Red Seal Gaming, a bunch of guys were saying like, hey, we're going to start a campaign for Armada. Oh man, we got like 6 people now interested in Armada. Let's play this. And I was like, okay. maybe I picked the wrong time. At the end of the day, I still don't regret selling out of it just because I even if it was there, I'm not going to get into it nearly as much. I'm not going to play it as much. So it probably was a good decision at the time. And I was able to turn it into other hobby. If memory serves, I think I turned that into some of my Conquest stuff. So like, yeah, that worked well because I absolutely love that game. But I got rid of the Legion because I know I'm just not going to go back to it. It's just, it doesn't interest me for a variety of the reasons that we already talked about. Maybe on a very personal level, it's not played as much. The design overall, I'm a little bit back and forth on. It's not that AMG did anything particularly wrong with it. It's just the overall design of the game. And I look at other games that I know have just eclipsed it in my mind in my enjoyment levels. Like I said, I'm working on Sigmar. I have tons of stuff I'm working on for Conquest. 40K is still fine. And I know I've really been enjoying Shatterpoint as well. So I want to spend my time on those sort of things. I know I'm not going to go back to the other one. So why bother keeping it? If I thought for a second I'd go back, I'd hold on to it. Another reason why I don't think I'd get rid of my Titanicus, because I do think I could go back to it. If tomorrow I brought it to the store and maybe warned people ahead of time, like, hey, let's do some Titanic stuff, people would show up with it. For the same with Legion, not nearly as much, and nor would I be as excited about doing it. Where Titanicus, I think I would. Same thing with Ice and Fire. I did keep some of my stuff after all these years, and I got some other things back. Because that was a game that I said, you know what, this is a game actually I really enjoy. So I didn't get rid of all of it because I knew I would want to go back at some point. I held on to stuff that I knew was tough to find that I couldn't get good value from. So for the time that I was at, when I sold out of Drop Zone Commander, yeah, sold out of it because I knew I wasn't going back. Drop Fleet, there's been talk of rumors of some of us going back to that, but realistically, we probably aren't. So I sold out of that. And worst case scenario, if we ever do go back, hey, I'm a more skilled painter now. I'm at a different point in my life. I can try different things and see how that goes. So, not the end of the world. All right. I think this has gone on for long enough. Like I said, I thought about doing this just because I lately, so right now it's Friday night, like 2 days ago, sold the army that I had. And I've thought about selling some other things as well. So I thought that might be of interest to some people just to kind of have that sort of thought process of why to sell out, why maybe even just the thought of like, why aren't you enjoying something that you used to enjoy? When we go back to certain types of games, there are games that I've played in the past that honestly, I just have no interest in anymore. It might be a little bit easier to talk about it from the perspective of, say, like video games. The only reason I say that is because there might be more examples. I mean, if you're the type of person who likes certain online games, if you're like Call of Duty player, you might just stop having fun with it one day. And that doesn't mean there's anything necessarily wrong with it or you. And there could be a variety of reasons. And that's kind of what we tried to go through before with some of the reasons why you might have lost that passion that you used to have for a project. And I know, at least for me, that happened. That's happened with 40K. It used to be my main game. What other spots? There's several others as well, but that's probably the biggest one, the biggest example. Fantasy, when that went away, obviously I lost everything of that. I did pick up Tomb Kings for the new stuff, but I haven't played that as much lately. It's a fine game. I'm doing other stuff, just enjoying other stuff more, so that's why I don't play it nearly as much. And I know that's going to come up with some other things as well. I think myself, at least, I'm paring down to a shorter list now as I get older of what do I want to play the most, because even though like we don't have kids, I still have limited time. There is still other things and more stuff than there used to be that divides my time. So I can't be where like, oh yeah, when I was younger, I used to go to go and play games, like every day of the weekend, full weekends, all that kind of stuff. Just can't do that anymore. I sometimes now get out on weeknights as well. Instead, I'll do a little bit on the weekend, and like maybe one weeknight we've been recording games. So, I'm still lucky to be able to do that, but I know that stuff changes. And even if it doesn't change entirely for me, I'll change for the people around me. I know there'll come a day when some of the places I go, there's just not going to be as many people hanging out on Saturdays, because now people are at different spots of their life. So There can be a variety of reasons, but hopefully, if you're thinking about maybe getting rid of something, maybe this gave you some ideas as to why you may want to, maybe why you shouldn't, and whether or not you should bother holding on to it or actually selling it. So, for other videos coming up, I have some Conquest stuff I'm going to be starting pretty soon. A few more things that I want to do with that. Our First Blood Battle Report, our third one, just came out. We're going to be recording some more ones this week. We'll probably also try to do a big game, maybe hopefully soon. And as soon as I can get some Sigmar painted up, I want to do some battle reports for that and anything else. If there's anything that is of interest that people want to see, put it down on the comments in YouTube. Let us know what you want to see, especially as we have to be a little more selective with Dan's availability and things like that, so that way we can maybe get him in on some of these discussions and all. I know he's interested in talking some Sigmar stuff as well, so if people are more interested in that, just let us know what it is that you want to see. I said, if you enjoy the content in general, we do have a Patreon. I don't talk about it as much just because I know we've been putting out less, so I kind of feel bad like mentioning that a lot, because I know it's just been tougher for us in general. But I'm trying to be at least more consistent, if not all of us, at least myself, to get things out there, because I do really enjoy doing this. I took on a couple extra projects this summer work-wise, and they are a lot more work than I first anticipated. But we also put that if you're looking for anything Conquest, we do have a discount code. It's Terrain Kickers. There's a copy of it in the show notes. That way it can save you 10%, helps us out as well. And I push that one more because you get something directly from that. You get some really cool models. Like I said, there's some really neat Gen Con models out right now that I'm going to have to make sure I pick up before the weekend ends. All right, well, on behalf of everyone here at the show, then, have some good hobbying. It's a great gaming.